Feeling good, wanna feel great. Longevity starts, don't hesitate. Too much noise, what do you choose? Trendy hacks, conflicting news. Skip the myths, come hear what's true. From world-class experts straight to you. First and third Thursdays, 7 p.m. Science, health, and our team. Brain to heart, from food to rest. Live the talk on living your best. Thursdays at 7, we'll see you there.
What, in your opinion, is still considered young, and perhaps you could advise at what age they can take neuroprotective drugs?
We have this concept of antagonistic pleiotropy. Things that are good for you when you're young are not good for you when you're old. But it's also the opposite. Things that are good for you when you're old are not good for you when you're young. So for example, I said IGF-1 is really good when you're young, but it's really bad when you're old. If you look at variety of outcomes and death, before the age of 50, you probably should optimize the other things. If those drugs are good at all for younger people, I'm not sure. I think maybe, and I think some of them will be good, but not all of them.
Hello, and welcome to the National University of Singapore Yongle Lin School of Medicine Healthy Longevity webinar. Thanks for joining us. What you just saw was a snapshot from our last episode with Professor Nir Barzilai. You can catch the full episode on YouTube. Tonight we have another exciting show with Professor Michael Chee. I'd like to remind you to use the Q&A function to send questions, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. Tonight we have Vanessa Wozni, a research fellow, with us to moderate your questions. Let's learn more about her.
Nice to meet you. Could you tell me a bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and I'm a research fellow here at the NUS Academy for Healthy Longevity. So my background is in biomedical research, but over here at the Academy, I focus on clinical trials that are aimed at optimizing health and maximizing potential.
That's great. And is this where you're based? Would a tour around the clinic be possible?
So this is our research office, but we're actually about to launch our new clinic where we'll be seeing our participants. If you come with me, we can actually take a sneak peek.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to our new clinic, come in.
This is a really nice space. Where are we?
So this is the common waiting area, but come with me, welcome to our clinic. So as you can see, our sign will be here, the NUS Academy for Healthy Longevity. So this is where we'll greet you as a participant when you come to our clinic. I can give you a tour of the clinic. Where do you want to go?
Do you guys have a gym?
Of course we do. Let's go. So this is our clinic gym. As you can see, it's kind of empty at the moment, but we will have a lot of equipment. So one of our rooms is this one. So we'll have treadmills and bikes where we'll do your VO2 max, and we'll also have various equipment such as to improve your strength and to also improve your aerobic base. So we do many of the assessments here at our clinic, but those rooms are not ready yet. If you come with me, we'll go speak at the reception.
Thank you so much for the tour. So what's your research about?
So one of the clinical trials I'm leading here at the Academy is called Sedera, and this is looking at whether multivitamin and mineral supplementation can reduce biological age.
How long is the study?
So it's a 12-month study, so you'll be with us for 12 months, and during that time you'll come for 3 visits as well as 1 screening visit to determine your eligibility. Basically, you'll come here, you'll do various assessments, and at the end of the study you'll be reimbursed with a voucher and you'll get your health assessment report.
Oh, that is really interesting. Can I participate in your study?
So if you're between the ages of 40 to 60 and in general good health, yes, you can participate in our study. At the end of this video, we'll have a QR code where you can register.
Thank you. And how has working in healthy longevity research changed you? Or what's been your biggest takeaway?
So I actually come from a background working in the lab with mice and cells, but coming here and working with humans makes me see the bigger picture of the research we do and also gives me more reward. We're not just studying aging, but we're also looking at the building frameworks to support healthier aging.
That's very important. So when you're not busy building frameworks, what do you usually like to do during your free time?
So I really like to wake up early in the morning and go for sunrise runs.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for taking us around. How can we connect with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, it's just Vanessa Wasney, and also I'll be moderating this session. So if you have any questions, leave them in the chat box.
See you.
You know, Vanessa, I like running too, but it's very unlikely you're going to see me running early in the morning, so you don't have to worry about that. I can't get past coffee early in the morning. Today, our guest is Professor Michael Chee, who's director of the Center for Sleep and Cognition at the NUS School of Medicine. His work spans the cognitive impact of sleep loss, neural mechanisms, and interventions to improve sleep across the lifespan. He's widely recognized for his contributions to neuroscience and public health, winning multiple National Clinician Scientist Awards in Singapore. He's also a member of our Healthy Longevity Translational Research Program and helps us out to think about the aging process. Tonight, his topic is Sleep as We Age, What Do We Know? Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, glad to be on this show, Brian, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you this material. It's a topic that is of great interest to many people, and I'm ready to go.
Sounds good. I think we don't pay enough attention to sleep, so here's everyone's chance.
All right, so I'm going to start the presentation. Sleep as we age, what do we know? So who is this talk for? I've tuned it to for the future senior who's juggling responsibilities and finds achieving sleep satisfaction more challenging than previously, and someone who wants to optimize aging and wondering what they can do about sleep, as well as for a current senior who has noticed a change in sleep patterns over time and is worried about cognitive decline, and also who might be wondering if their afternoon nap is harmful or beneficial to cognition. And for both groups, who want to find some guidance about actionable sleep targets, I'll be providing some numbers, and also those who want to know the latest sleep enhancing tech, whether it's got promise. So the topics I'm going to cover are these, and you'll hear about them. What I'm not going to cover is sleep disorders and their treatment, except for a passing comment about insomnia. Now, there are three main reasons why sleep changes with age. First, it's just part of the normal aging process. Second, it's a result of disruptions associated with chronic illness. And thirdly, a result of disruptions related to taking medications. But most of my talk will be about how normal aging can affect sleep. Now, to get into the meat of things, these are hypnograms comparing sleep patterns in a young adult and an elderly person. And what you can see is the different stages of sleep against wakefulness. In most of us, when we were young, would enter bed, and then the next thing you know, it'll be morning, and this speaks to a really high, sleep efficiency. But as you get older, the thing that you will notice is that sleep is earlier in onset and offset, and then it tends to be shorter in duration. Also, it tends to get more fragmented. So compared to the young person, you can see an older person is waking up often briefly, but sometimes wake up and you have difficulty falling asleep again. As a result of both this, as well as longer time taken to fall asleep, sleep is less efficient. And then something that we've all been told about, there is less deep sleep or slow wave sleep. And as a result, the sleep is lightened. You tend to get a greater proportion of lighter sleep. So just a few words about what the slow wave sleep is. It's called slow wave sleep because if you look at the EEG or the brain waves, these are relatively slow oscillations compared to what you see in light sleep and wakefulness. The zigs are a lot faster in wakefulness compared to slow wave sleep. Now, the change in sleep patterns has resulted in the National Sleep Foundation recommending slightly less sleep for older persons. Now, this is generally understandable, but even these targets can be hard to achieve. And there needs to be some background about this. Firstly, these recommendations are mostly based on self-reports, and they largely reflect time in bed. They're not based on tracker data because that technology wasn't available at the time these recommendations were formulated. There was no differentiation between weekday and weekend sleep. Naps are not accounted for, and the sleep durations here represent primarily North American and Europe-centric patterns or norms. This will be important for reasons I'll share with further down the line. Now, an important point is as we get older, we are more likely to encounter chronic disease, and multiple chronic diseases affect sleep. And this is why later on you'll hear that having comorbidities or underlying chronic illness is a big factor in when we consider how sleep affects cognition or poor sleep affects cognition. Now, sleep duration seems simple enough. We're told to sleep 8 hours a night, but this is actually not as straightforward. And it's because of the difference in what is subjectively reported from self-reports and what the gold standard measurement polysomnography, which is the EEG-based method, finds. This study, the Sleep Heart Health Study, is a large North American study, and it found that self-reported habitual total sleep time can be as much as an hour longer than what people actually sleep. Now, if you ask the person the morning after they slept, they tend to be more accurate. But through a wide age range, people generally tend to overestimate their sleep. So the sleep recommendations are based on a slightly higher number than what people, the sleep you would get if you were to wear a sleep tracker. Further, persons with depression, who have hostile personalities, perception of poor health, may show greater discrepancy in reported versus measured sleep. Now, why is this important for understanding the risks to health and in particular cognition? Now, if you look at most reports, in fact, if you do a large-scale analysis, you'll find that you get this similar U-shaped function. So there is higher risk of all-cause mortality, whether it's based on weekday or weekend sleep, with both shorter and longer sleep duration. In fact, the slope tends to be steeper with longer sleep durations. And this is so with cardiovascular mortality as well. Self-report. When you look at the objective data, what you see is both for all-cause and cardiovascular mortality, the slope for shorter sleep gets steeper compared to self-reports, and the slope for longer sleep tends to flatten out. So it's important to understand the source of data when looking at the impact of sleep duration on health and well-being. Now, beyond duration, which is the most widely understood and easily measured parameter of sleep, there's also regularity, satisfaction, alertness, timing, efficiency, which is how much of the time you spend in bed you're actually asleep, and of course, duration. For something like regularity, most of us cannot keep track of it automatically, and this is where trackers come in to assist us in assessing that. Now, sleep duration alone may not adequately portray sleep. In this set of slides, we demonstrate that a person with a similar sleep duration, one person may be dissatisfied and the other person is satisfied. Same sleep duration, and one person is fine, the other person is sleepy during the day. People who sleep at different timings may achieve some desynchronization of their circadian rhythms. Two people might spend the same time in bed, but one person spends more time actually asleep than the other person. And there's, of course, regularity, where you can have the same duration, but different timing on different nights, or different durations in each night, but the same average. But this factor actually is emerging as more important than, or as important, or if not more important than duration in predicting health outcomes. So that's the point from this set of analyses performed. This is not an analysis, but this is a nice illustration of such, the contrast. So this is a regular sleeper. On each night, they go to sleep at the same time, wake up same time. As a result, sleep regularity is very good. They take some naps in the afternoon. Now, this is a healthy pattern, in contrast to an irregular sleeper like this person, whom I think the graphic speaks for itself. This is an unhealthy pattern. Now, next, what is the link between sleep and cognitive decline, and a little bit about insomnia in older adults? Now, the popular press has now educated the public that there is waste clearance occurring principally during deep sleep or slow wave sleep, and that if compromised, this can increase your risk of Alzheimer's disease. In fact, there is good lab evidence that interfering with deep sleep or artificially producing sleep fragmentation can result in greater accumulation of this neurotoxic amyloid. And there are small studies that also demonstrate this in humans. Now, this is all pretty scary and should make us think about our sleep. However, there's also longitudinal epidemiologic data that suggests that the effect may not be as scary when you look at populations. And these are findings from two studies, one conducted in England and one in China combined, involving over 20,000 people. And you can see that the effect of sleep duration on cognitive decline, it's also this inverted U shape, but it's much shallower than you would suspect from the experimental and small-scale human data shown earlier. Now, one important consideration in this data, there is a relationship, but it's relatively small, is that the estimates of risk are adjusted for confounding factors like age, for depression, for coronary artery disease, and stroke. So comorbid conditions or other things you might have affect this risk of cognitive decline. Now, when we looked at a good number of other studies, aggregate of 72 studies, what we found was that, what Eva from our lab found was that, sorry, this is not moving. Sleep continuity actually contributes more to cognitive performance, and this is in relatively healthy people, than sleep duration, as I mentioned earlier. And the domains that are affected involve memory, which we care about. This is the memory of what we've done, and executive function. So remember, the association sleep continuity with cognition is stronger than with duration. Now, an important point also for those of you who are very concerned about the association between poor sleep and cognitive decline is that everything I've said so far would suggest that poor sleep results in cognitive decline, the so-called direct effect. But is this really true? Sometimes there is a contribution also to cognitive decline from cardiovascular disease, and we call this a mediated effect, right? So, and then there is reverse causation, which is in the pure form, not so likely, where cognitive decline itself results in poor sleep. More likely, you have something like cognitive decline is accompanied by depression, which then results in poor sleep. And finally, a kind of pathway that many people think is also is correct is that neurodegeneration, which results in cognitive decline, also leads to poor sleep. So poor sleep, no one disputes, is an indicator that one is at risk of cognitive decline. Now, what about insomnia? Insomnia is a condition that is characterized by difficulty with initiation or maintenance of sleep, also with early morning awakening. And to be significant, it has to be associated with daytime loss of function. To be significant, it has to occur at least 3 times a week for about 3 months or longer. Now, there's strong evidence that insomnia risk is heritable. Okay, so this is something to consider. It is also, the risk of insomnia increases with age, and the prevalence is quite high, between 15 to 30% in Asians. And the severity of insomnia can be elevated if you have an illness, if there's a major event like social isolation, bereavement, and the taking of some medications. So people who have insomnia usually have a genetic predisposition and then encounter a precipitating trigger like a major life event, a disappointment, a very stressful period. And then if that stress or that precipitating factor persists, then insomnia has a risk of being persistent. Many older people I speak to are worried that their insomnia can result in dementia. But here is a piece of data that is somewhat reassuring. And this comes from a 10-year long multiple wave longitudinal study conducted in the US. And they looked at thousands of people who had sleep initiation insomnia, difficulty falling asleep, sleep maintenance insomnia, and sleep medication usage. And they found that without adjustment for other factors, sleep initiation insomnia and sleep medication usage increase your risk of dementia. What was interesting is, and I met someone in the gym just a while ago saying that they wake up at night and sometimes have difficulty falling back asleep. They eventually do. This group of people actually has a lower risk of dementia. Now, this may be a little bit of an anomaly with this study, but it is a finding nevertheless. So with sleep initiation, insomnia, and hypnotic drug use, if you account for the other factors like social demographics and health variables, then, and what do you mean by social demographics? So education and income, if you're well educated, if you have a good job, your risk of dementia tends to get lowered irrespective of actually how you sleep. And ditto with health status. If you have good health, then you can have insomnia and that risk is reduced. Okay, so I think this should be reassuring to some listeners. Now, another question a lot of people ask me is it useful to track sleep? And my position is that it is useful. Now, there are multiple sleep trackers on the market. They sort of look the same, but they do have differences. So you have to pay attention to those differences, and I'll point to you a resource where you can look this up. But why is a tracker good for anyone serious about health improvement? The most important thing is that it is a reliable one, provides an accurate log of your sleep over time. And especially as we get older, we become less accurate in our recall of how we slept. And also, many people do not recognize that they wake up briefly multiple times in the night and do not recognize the sleep fragmentation or loss of continuity. That is important to discover. For many people, the review of relevant health data does change health behavior. For example, there are people who recognize that if they drink alcohol, their heart rate will spike and that it interferes with their sleep maintenance. So they change their behavior as a result. And then when we collect a lot of data from many people, this analysis of what we call high-dimensional longitudinal data will provide us quite novel insights into health. Some additional reasons. Now, I mentioned earlier that sleep recommendations have been largely formulated on self-report data. So accurate, objective assessment of sleep in different demographic groups will give us more representative sleep norms. Collecting such data is also vital for differentiating biological versus environmental or social influences on sleep. And this will help guide the development of sleep advice or interventions that are acceptable by different cultures. Recommendations are important, but the ones that really matter are those that are adopted. And to that point, I'd like to share some data that we benefited from collecting through the provision by Aura. 220,000 users across 35 countries. And what you see here is that sleep is different across countries. Asians generally sleep shorter as a result of sleeping later. And the total sleep time spread is as much as 40 minutes. So this late onset sleep is a potential target because for work reasons, many of us have to wake up at a particular time. So this sleep onset time is something that we can modulate. And a study that was published recently supports the idea that healthy sleep durations may vary across cultures. So we might sleep less. It may not be as damaging as we think. Although I do think that the irregularity with which many people sleep is going to be harmful. But take this data point to heart. To the point about weekday sleep variability, you can see that Asians have the highest weekday total sleep time variability. We don't have clear targets, but if you took this data over a week, right, that's about 50, the standard deviation about 50 to 55 minutes is average. If you're longer than this, then it's really quite, it's possibly unhealthy. For those of you who are interested in choosing a good sleep tracker and looking at what is good enough for your use, may I recommend you look up this document, which is available open access online. You just need to Google it. To the question about naps, are they helpful or harmful in older persons? Now, your perspective depends where you live. If you are North America or Europe, culturally, there has traditionally been some opposition to napping in adults, especially working adults. For example, the US government, this allows its employees from sleeping in the afternoon. However, for the rest of the world, this analysis of 11 prospective cohort studies is more reassuring. The main thing is that if you nap for less than 1 hour, most people nap for 15 to 30 minutes, it is fine. It's not associated with cardiovascular risk or cause mortality. It is the long daytime naps that are associated with higher risk. A direct study looking at this with respect to Alzheimer's risk found that yes, if you have more frequent and longer naps, you will have a higher risk, but shorter naps are not anywhere as scary as some would like to believe. And that should be reassuring. I'd like to conclude by just saying a few words about new approaches to induce or promote sleep. Now, the established measures are here and they are well known: cognitive behavioral therapy, traditional hypnotics, and the first is probably the most important one to try. Amongst the new measures I find this quite exciting, is orexin antagonist. Now, an orexin is a molecule that is very important in wake promotion. So antagonizing it results in cutting off that arousal, allowing you to sleep. The benefit of these dual orexin receptor antagonists is that they have a better safety profile, and their mechanism seems more suited for just enabling sleep. Now, there is also talk about acoustic stimulation. So this is one of several ways to boost slow wave sleep or slow oscillations. Now, this in our hands also has been shown to work in terms of increasing slow waves. This many groups have shown you can increase the slow waves. You can increase the slow waves with this technique, with pharmacology. The challenge is that it does not produce robust effects on cognition. And the evidence to support the benefit on cognition initially, of course, is very promising, but it's modest and it's weakening. So be wary about listening to some of the hype about acoustic stimulation and cognitive enhancement. And finally, literally shedding light on the brain is this idea of photobiomodulation. It was discovered many years ago that shining light onto skin, laser light, would improve hair growth and wound healing. And experimentally, it does show improvements in metabolism, and it's been tried for sleep improvement. But human studies lack rigor, and there are no standards in stimulation protocols. So I think that at this present time, the effect on sleep is insufficiently studied to merit recommendation. So I hope with these tidbits, I'll invite some questions. And if you want to find more about what we do about sleep research, just look up this QR code. It remains for me to thank our supporters, especially the Yong Loo School of Medicine, National Medical Research Council, Lee Foundation, and Aura. And I'm happy to take some questions now.
You talked about naps, as an indicator of Alzheimer's disease. One of the things I notice when I wear, I'm wearing a Whoop right now, but I've worn an Oura Ring in the past too, is that they calculate recovery, and then when you take a nap, they don't incorporate that much into any recovery. You mentioned naps as an indicator of decline. I'm asking.
No, I want to correct that. Naps are actually good. In general, they can help you restore alertness and such. And many Asians nap, and they are worried that that's that's negative. And I think yes, what you say is a really, for one of a better word, is a very westernized view of naps that it's something to frown on. They're not. In fact, there's a new work that's come out from UK Biobank and the Charles Chinese study suggesting that if you already nap regularly and you're in good health, you stop nap, something is not so good. It's not so good for cognitive outcomes or health outcomes.
Yeah, that's where I was going. What's the good side of naps? And I think that it's we don't talk about that much. You mentioned that the federal government in the U.S. doesn't allow naps. Well, that was now I think the federal government's not allowing people to wake up. So maybe it's gone in a different direction. Perhaps I shouldn't go there though.
But having said that, may I say something? In the U.S. and Germany, when people retire, about half of them nap. So I think it's really it's an affordance that, if allowed, more people would do, especially now when people are sleeping less in their working lives at night.
You mentioned things about sleep efficiency, duration that were related to AD or Alzheimer's disease. What about other forms of dementia like Parkinson's disease and other common things that happen as you get older? Are there relationships there that we know about?
There are sort of different kinds of so with Parkinson's, it's not the relationship with sleep can be tricky. So if you take a certain kind of Parkinson's medicine, you actually get you can have sleep attacks. So I think the argument is different. Most of what I want to cover is the most common causes of dementia, from vascular dementia, which is related to hypertension, underlying cardiovascular disease, and Alzheimer's, and just cognitive aging, which memory decline with age, which most people encounter to some degree or another.
Are there links to physical decline?
Yeah, so the key message that I wanted to transmit is that if you are in good physical health, then the poor sleep, the weight of the poor sleep is less than if you had the combination of poor physical health, or some risk factor like even hypertension and poor sleep. Then I think there are red flags out there and there are warning signs. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose I was asking the reverse question. You said that good physical health can compensate for poor sleep, but does poor sleep, is that a risk factor for decreased physical function?
Well, they are interrelated because if you are not good, if you're not good physical health, your sleep is poor, or if you have poor sleep, you are less likely to want to exercise, more likely to be sedentary. And I have actually a nice slide about that, but I chose not to show it. So there's this three-way interaction between sleep, physical activity, and sedentariness.
Yeah, I think it's really complicated a lot for people to think about what's causal and what's associative in these kinds of assays and or studies. And so that's why I'm trying to dig into this a little bit.
I think,
Let me,
the thing that I will, want the audience to pay attention to is we in NUS have used the same sleep tracking device on three groups, our undergraduates, undergraduate freshmen, working staff in NUS, and elders living in the community. And we found that when you look at the activity sleep plots, you think the ages are flipped because the seniors that participate in these studies sleep better, they are physically more active, especially in the morning, and they're less sedentary. And I think this should raise alarms in the public health sector. Really, it's something that we need to work on.
yeah, I think I've heard this. I've heard you bring this up in Singapore, even with students at younger ages, and I've also heard this in discussions in China recently, and about the pressure that gets put on kids when they're early in life to perform well, and the effects it has on their sleep patterns. Is there, what would be a good public health approach to this where you still have good STEM performance, but we're allowing these kids to sleep better? Is there a path to that?
I think sleep is important for optimal cognitive function, and it's also very important for mood. So one of the things that is most robust, we were interested in memory attention. The effect on attention is quite strong. Memory is actually not as strong. The one that is very strong is on mood. And we have shown in other studies that the day-to-day fluctuation in sleep relative to your own average can affect mood. So if you sleep less than your average, your mood tends to be worse. And mood and motivation is something that affects learning. It affects social interactions. It affects our effectiveness as a unit in a community. So it's important to pay attention to sleep, even for students who seem to be at least physiologically more robust to the effects of sleep loss. I mean, physiologically, but they suffer in terms of attentional loss. They suffer in terms of encoding, loss of encoding of information. And it's no fun being around a grouchy kid or adult or anyone for that matter.
It's talking about mood. Let me bring it back to AD just briefly, because one of the things that gets underappreciated in Alzheimer's disease are mood disorders and changes in mood. Have there been links specifically between sleep patterns and the mood effects of Alzheimer's disease?
I'm afraid I can't answer that question directly. I don't have that data point in my head, but it follows from all the adult work. Even in healthy people, poor sleep is associated with poorer mood, motivation. Of course, you tend to get more sleepy and fatigued, and you're less willing to do all the good things that you're supposed to do: eat well, exercise, and such, and be less sedentary.
Let me ask a personal question. A lot of people know I travel a lot. I'm in the U.S. right now. It's 5:41 in the morning. This very show is tough for my sleep. How much, what about jet lag? How big of a problem is it? Does it vary tremendously from one person to the next? What can people do about it?
With circadian desynchronization is what you're talking about. You're basically, and that's where some of the fatigue comes from. With jet lag, I think we travel a lot more. We do a lot more transmeridian travel than we used to. But still, generally a relatively small proportion of the world's affected. I mean, there's a number of people travel, and it does take a toll on your body. I think the challenge is that there are lab studies of jet lag, usually done, in very controlled settings. There is insufficient study on jet lag in working adults and in real world conditions where you have beyond just the circadian desynchronization, you have responsibilities to cover, their stresses and such. We recently performed a study in conjunction with Aura about documenting those effects. You can look it up. What you can do, people differ in, as you pointed out, in their sensitivity to jet lag. The study was based on people who did vacation travel. And with vacation travel, if you travel west and you have a tendency to sleep earlier, now if you can, follow your clock until it resets. It might surprise you that the sleep duration reset occurs within 2 to 3 days. It's the sleep timing reset that takes longer. And if you fight that, if you go west, you have a tendency to sleep earlier. If you go east, you have a tendency to sleep later. If you keep fighting that, then that is going to increase your sense of fatigue, even if your sleep duration is restored. So that's one advice you can give. But of course, if you're a senior person, you can have some discretion over your schedule. If you're a more junior person and you're traveling on business, that becomes harder. And so I'll pause there.
Yeah, you may not have data on this either, but let's say, a lot of times with me, I wake up like 4 a.m. when I'm jet lagged. Is it better to just be calm in bed, try to, let your body do its best it can to rest, or should I just get up and go about my life?
Yeah, so if you try to fall asleep and say after half an hour, if you're relaxed and such, you can't fall asleep, it's probably okay to get up and then do something and then let your the body sort of recover. It will eventually, but the sleep timing can take as much as 2 weeks to recover, even with a 3-hour cross-meridian travel. Now, there are, of course, the things about exposure to light and physical activity, but the timing of it is more complicated than say in a couple of minutes. But exposure to light in your particular, the new time zone is quite good for resetting, because as you know, light is helps reset the circadian clock. It's just the timing that's critical. Some people take melatonin as well, but the timing of melatonin is tricky, and the response curves show a lot of inter-individual variation. So it's, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'll pause there. So melatonin is not a simple thing to use. That's what I'll say. A lot of people use it as a hypnotic, but it's not really a hypnotic. It has effects on shifting your circadian phase as well.
Let me ask one more question, then we'll go to the audience. And I think this is an important question. Let's say you feel like you're having a sleep problem, your tracker is saying that your sleep efficiency is not good. When do you consider going to medication? I mean, when do you go to the doctor and try to do something about it? I think a lot of people don't kind of ignore this and don't go get help. And I'm thinking, when's the right time?
Okay, 2 things I want to say. Firstly, I emphasize a lot about objective sleep measurement, but it would be totally wrong if the audience left, thinking that that's the be-all and end-all of sleep measurement. So your subjective appraisal. So do you feel satisfied when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel alert when you wake up in the morning and you are sufficiently alert through the day? These are important factors to consider as well. Now, if both are poor, then and you wonder about your sleep, then and the objective markers suggest that your sleep wasn't great. And even if they do, it's worthwhile getting a check-in with a sleep person. And the first thing to do is not to take a pill. The first thing to do is to look at something called CBT, which has got 4 pillars. Looking at your sleep hygiene and habits, looking at cognitive therapy to see whether or not there are some faulty notions about what is realistic to expect of sleep. There's stimulus control, which means you use you associate the bed for sleep, and unfortunately many of us do work in bed, and that actually erodes that association. Stimulus control, and then sleep restriction. So to your point about jet lag, if you're not sleepy and you've tried to sleep and can't sleep, get out and do stuff, and then sleep when you can. I mean, this might be the reason why in that data slide, the people with sleep maintenance, insomnia, after accounting for health factors, actually have better outcomes, right? Because they make productive use of that time. They're chill.
Be chill. That sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, be chill. Easy to say, hard to do, right?
Exactly. I want to bring back Vanessa Wozniak, who you saw earlier. She's a
Yes.
research fellow in your School of Medicine, and she's here to ask questions from the audience.
Fire away.
Thank you so much, Professor Michael. So the first question is, what are the recommended hours of sleep for a healthy individual? They read that different school of thoughts, some say 7 to 9, some say it's not about the number, but it's about the quality.
Okay, so 7 to 9, that's for young adults. For older adults tuning in, it can be as low as 6. And I make the differentiation between your time in bed and your actual sleep time. Now, for many of our local persons, if they get 6.5 hours actual sleep time, it probably is not something I'd worry about, okay, too much. Now, that's actual sleep time. But to get that, you probably need to spend around 7.5 hours in bed, right? Because sleep efficiency is never 100%. The numbers, as the audience rightly pointed out, are a guide. They're less, I wouldn't say they're not important, but everyone is slightly different. The group average is the NSF recommendations. There are differences in weekday and weekend. I'll say this: if you benefit from weekend catch-up sleep, go ahead and do it, because there is now quite good data to suggest that it's better to have weekend catch-up sleep if you need it than not. Now, in terms of the actual timing, I think the sleep trackers will help you discover what is great for yourself. So if you wake up in the morning satisfied with your sleep, if you're alert, you go through the day and you have enough vigor to engage in physical activity, interact nicely with people, that level of sleep is probably good enough for you. If you're constantly fatigued, the number might be different. So some people need more sleep than others. What I would also recommend is do not compare deep sleep. Okay, so my point earlier is about the trackers sort of measure a proxy for it. They don't actually measure deep sleep, they measure a proxy for it, and it's an indicator. So if deep sleep is very, very low, if you measure it with PSG, then of course, one would be concerned. But there's nothing, as far as I know, you can do beyond exercise and getting enough sleep to modulate the deep sleep. The artificial means to enhance it, you can enhance it, but it doesn't have the cognitive benefits that people expect.
The second question is kind of a follow-up. Which is more important, REM sleep or deep sleep?
No.
What's the difference between them, and how can we differentiate them?
Okay, so this will require another talk. A lot of people have, they look at the sleep tracker and they pay attention to this. My point is that what you should pay attention to is your sleep timing. Many East Asians sleep very late, right? And that has got generally somewhat negative effects on cognition. We sleep too late. So trying to sleep a little more on time to get adequate sleep duration is a good strategy. Number one. Number two, so sleep a little earlier, get enough sleep to make you feel subjectively better. And the third thing is try to sleep regularly. Okay, so these are the three things you should pay attention to. Deep sleep and REM sleep, it's not that they're not important. They have important biological and emotional functions, especially your REM sleep, but it's not something you can easily regulate. Now, there are a couple of medications. If you are on medications for a number of psychotropics, okay, if you have a mental illness, a lot of medications affect REM sleep, but it's not something you can easily control. Okay, so I would not recommend people to get fixated on it. And with deep sleep, my position is very clear. It's nice if you have good deep sleep, count your blessings, don't compete with your friends. I'm more deep sleep than you, right? Just don't do that. That's not helpful.
Okay.
A lot of that is actually determined by factors related to biology or heritability or the state of your brain. And, we all try to do as much as we can to stave off cognitive decline, but there is quite an element of that is heritable, which is beyond our control. Our job is to try to do the best we can for what we've been given.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, why do you think longer naps are detrimental?
That is, it's an epidemiologic association. It's very robust, right? Now, the answer that is acceptable is that biologically is that these longer naps actually signify an issue with health. Some part of your body's machinery is not functioning optimally, and that's causing the longer naps. It could be in the brain, so it could be as a result of increased inflammation or some underlying chronic disease. Just take it that the association is robust.
Okay.
More than an hour, 2 hours for older people. For young people, there are quite a few students who take these, long naps, but that is an indicator that they don't sleep enough at night.
Okay, next question. Do you think there is a robust evidence for a blunted melatonin response in older adults and hence the possibility of melatonin supplementation?
Okay, that's a loaded one. In general, the melatonin production, does drop. There's a class of hypnotics which works on melatonin receptors. I'm not sure. I don't think it's available in Singapore. It may be just approved or something, but no. And I think melatonin for the lay person is tricky because it's an unregulated product. So with most pharmaceuticals, when you take, like say something for hypertension, I mean, there are regulations about the chemical purity and such of the product. With melatonin, the actual bioavailability is different for different products. And also most of the time you're taking supraphysiologic by 5x, 10x, 10 milligrams, for example, is multiples of what is physiological. So there's been a lot of work on melatonin, but these basic questions remain, to my mind, not really answered.
I see, okay. The next question is, are there any good consumer EEG devices to track sleep phases?
Okay, they are sort of appearing in the market, but they're not currently available unless you make a special import. I will say that we have been using this for these devices for some time. I personally use a Dream headband. Just give me a sec, I'll pull it out for you. This baby. But it will set you back a lot because it's more for research use. I'll give you one name, Muse, but again, the cost is pretty high. And the other thing is you can wear this, but to use that data wisely, I think you do need some background knowledge. The manufacturers of these devices don't provide you with the kind of information that the current sleep trackers, the well-designed ones, do. I mean, they actually have departments that curate sleep advice and try to give you principled sleep advice, which is going to help your health.
Okay, so the next question is, Why does long night sleep cause cardiovascular disease and cognitive decline? And will sleep maybe produce more reactive oxidative species?
Sorry, can I hear that last bit?
Will long sleep maybe produce more reactive oxidative species? So increase ROS.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can say that as far as is known, there are many plausible mechanisms why short sleep is associated with poor health, including cardiovascular health. But there are no known plausible mechanisms why long sleep relates to poor health. And one interesting theory by Thomas Balkin, advanced recently, is that the people with long sleep. Okay, so one thing is that some conditions that affect the brain do result in hypersomnia. Okay, and even degenerative ones. But for other people, the theory is that there is a distribution of sleep need. Some people need more sleep than others, and the people with long sleep may still not be getting adequate sleep for whatever reason, because their brains are unable to generate a sleep signal, and they're not getting enough sleep. And paradoxically, even though they spend more time in bed, they are not, they're not getting enough sleep. That sounds quite unsatisfactory, but that's written. The other reason is the one I gave earlier, that the association with long sleep and bad outcomes is mostly from self-reports. And these people may be, as to my point earlier, they may be spending a lot of time in bed and they're reporting that they're trying to sleep, but they're actually not getting the sleep that their bodies need. It's fragmented and they don't recall that. And that is accounts for the difference in the mortality curve with the objective versus the self-report data that I showed earlier.
Okay, so the next question is, are there any cognitive behavioral techniques that can help postmenopausal women who have difficulty falling asleep?
Boy, that is challenging. And I think one thing that does help for at least in early menopause is hormone therapy. That is useful. I know people are concerned about elevated risk of cancer and such, but I think that you have to speak to your own physician to weigh the benefits and costs for that. But HRT for many women is effective in helping with improving postmenopausal sleep. It is a big issue that I think the sleep tracking companies are looking into.
Let me just jump in and comment on that too, because it's a recurring theme in our show.
Yep.
You know, I think we've come to the idea that HRT, the question really should be, is there any reason why a woman should not do it? And there are reasons, but for the majority of women, I think the rewards outweigh the risk.
Yep. And you know, I think we are living at a time where people have much higher expectations of life. In the past, you know, people would, I think even dementia, right? It was called, you know, part of the aging process. It's not. We know now it's pathological. So I think with the postmenopausal state, what you said is absolutely correct. That, you know, most people, regardless of risk, will probably are going to take HRT because it does help.
The next question is melatonin helpful?
All right. So many people say that it helps them sleep, but the published literature, if you do careful reviews and meta-analysis, it's quite neutral. So it's not generally harmful, but whether or not it's helpful, I mentioned, if I could, you know, show some slides, that there are several different things. CBT is first. Okay, so always try CBT. It requires work, it requires effort, but it's the first line of treatment. Then you can look at sleep aid medications, and there are several. I mentioned the DORA, which is a new one, which is which is effective. Now with melatonin, it is not technically a hypnotic in the sense that it doesn't put you to sleep. It makes you a little sleepy, but it's not a traditional hypnotic. Now, I know people will swear by it. Some people swear by it, but the evidence in meta-analyses is that it's sort of neutral.
Vanessa, well, I would just cut in here. You got one last question, so make it good.
Yeah.
Okay. May regular exercise improve your sleep even in the older age?
Thank you for asking that question. Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. And now, okay, so if you want to, aerobic exercise in particular is useful. The boost in sleep in terms of its objective boost may not be so impressive, but many people express greater satisfaction with sleep. It is one of the measures that can actually improve deep sleep naturally. I mentioned that you can't do that much. It helps with some people, not everyone, but it's one of the measures that's good. And if you exercise in the morning, like many of our seniors already do, it helps keep your circadian rhythm in check because that morning light helps advance the clock and make you encourage your body to sleep earlier as well. So yeah, exercise is good. I think Brian and I both subscribe to that, and hopefully we're walking advertisements for its benefits, right, Brian?
I hope so. Yeah, I do everything I can, that's for sure. I think Vanessa too. So we're all three on that. And by the way, thanks Vanessa for doing the show. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back in the future. Mike, we may have to have you every week. This is more questions that I've ever seen before. So we'll make this your regular Thursday show now.
Yeah, well,
and
thanks.
all right, we'll negotiate later.
All right, all good.
All right. So bear with me. There's a lot of announcements to make tonight, and patience brings longevity. I'm not sure that's true, but that's what my notes say. So first of all, we have a Healthy Living Symposium 2025 is set to take place in Budapest. I know a lot of you probably can't make that, but it's just another example of the symposiums that the National University of Singapore is participating in. So this is bringing together global leaders in science, healthcare, innovation to shape the future of healthy aging and longevity. It's organized by the Hungarian Research Network and in US, and it's just another in our effort to discuss the aging process scientifically and disseminate knowledge to the public. If you're a scientist and looking for where to publish your papers, you may know that we had the first ever gerophysics conference in March, and we've now launched a special collection on gerophysics in collaboration with the journal NPJ Aging. Submissions are now open. You can scan the QR code and find out more if your paper is relevant to that. We're looking at recruitment opportunities to work on AI and longevity. If you're interested in working in AI in the longevity field, we have opportunities. We're looking for open local undergraduates and final year project students for full-time on-site participation. Visiting scholars are also welcome. Feel free to take a quick screenshot of the screen coming up. Also, I want to remind you the last time that we have changed our webinar format. We now have 2 webinars on the first and third Thursdays of the month at the same time, 7 p.m. The next one will be September 4th, 2025, where we'll have Assistant Professor Matthew Yusufzadeh, and he'll be talking about investigating the effects of rapamycin on immune rejuvenation. I'm going to leave you with a teaser for that show. Thank you for joining our show. Leave comments on it, and we'll see you September 4th.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you though. Come in. So I focus on a disease called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So here are 2D liver cells.